This course is brought to you by USAA. We would like to thank USAA for their generosity in making this course possible. The presenter of this course is Dr. Sarah Nunick. She's a staff psychologist at the VA San Diego and a clinical professor at UCSD School of Medicine Department of Psychiatry. She's also a nationally recognized subject matter expert in sexuality, couples, trauma, PTSD, and veterans, and has been published in journals and has authored multiple book chapters on these subjects. Dr. Nunick also presents another of our courses titled Intimacy and Emotional Disconnect in Military Populations.
Today's talk is focused on loved ones of a struggling veteran and aims to help you make an emotional connection with your checked out veteran. Does your veteran seem checked out and detached? And how can you tell? There are signs of an emotionally detached veteran that include, first, protecting emotions from oneself. When shielding oneself from emotions, people may isolate or spend large amounts of time distracting from their own painful inner experiences through use of excessive TV watching, using the computer, over-exercise, and over-ambitiousness at work. This might include working hard to achieve at work, such as titles and status, taking on extra projects, and working hard for promotion. If these are done in order to distract oneself from painful inner experiences or try to work to feel better about oneself, it can be driven from a different place, one of avoidance of pain, rather than pursuing one's values and goals. People also avoid painful experiences within themselves by avoiding external triggers of painful topics, including avoiding people, places, things, and situations that evoke discomfort. This can be confusing for their loved one if the veteran is now avoiding activities and things that were once shared and enjoyed by both. Another subtle way that people actually protect themselves from painful or difficult emotions within is to turn quickly to a focus on the bright side. Although noticing the bright side of things and the positive within a situation can be very effective and promote health, if it's used to avoid focusing and working through deeper problems that need attention, it can be used as an avoidance strategy that actually prevents the processing of emotions that are necessary to address, even though they're painful. People can also avoid through changing topics when difficult or emotionally painful experience starts to come up. Additionally, dismissing the significance of an emotional experience, such as putting on the military mask or the strong Marine mentality, can also assist in avoidance during tough moments. This mask can help one feel shielded when difficult and painful emotions are evoked, yet it also can come between the veteran and the person that they love, putting up somewhat of a wall, especially when it comes to intimacy and trying to work through painful difficulties together to create closeness, connection. People also protect themselves from feeling painful emotions within by staying in the content of what happened, telling a story in a fact-telling or logical way that doesn't allow one to process the deeper emotions or to make contact with the meaning, even though it's painful, of difficult events. The logical mode is in contrast to a more emotionally available stance of allowing and expressing vulnerable feelings. These are feelings that can make one feel weak, scared, exposed. Feelings such as fear, loneliness, sadness, crying. Although these vulnerable experiences often leave one feeling more exposed and open, they also allow one to pull for comforting and emotionally connect with loved ones. Other ways people detach and protect themselves from emotions often include internal strategies that can't be seen from the outside. These include the idea of suppression or pushing down painful emotions, denial, emotional numbing out, not getting close enough to life events or memories to allow yourself to recall them in detail and with emotional flavor, and difficult times recalling the story or narrative of one's life. Because emotions allow one's memories to be colored and enlivened with life, Detaching from one's emotional experience can often leave a person feeling detached from their own history, their narrative, and their story. Many of these strategies to detach oneself from emotional experience that's painful are largely unconscious, or they're not actively nor willfully done. Instead, emotional detachment becomes a mode of processing that's often done without the awareness or intention of the person. Veterans might also protect their emotions from others, even those close to them. This can take many forms, but it might include a display of anger or irritability when sensitive topics are brought up. This often serves to keep people at arm's length distance, to put a wall up or to push people away, as a protective mechanism. Another way to protect one's emotions from others might be to shut down or to close an uncomfortable discussion quickly by going silent, turning away, or saying, "We're done talking." It's important to understand the history of emotional checking out for our culture and for men in particular. Emotional detachment is conditioned in men from westernized cultures such as the US, basically from birth. Even though at birth, US males are as or more emotionally expressive than female babies, by age 3, male boys are already conditioned to be emotionally less vocal. Early messages ingrained in our society include comments like "boys don't cry" and "don't cry like a baby." These messages encourage early emotional suppression and a pulling away from what is natural and healthy in terms of dependency needs, such as the need to cry out for comforting by loved ones in times of pain. These are universally wired attachment behaviors that are often conditioned out of men in our society. What we know is that attachment behavior, or the need to reach for others for comforting, is a behavior that's natural and normal from the cradle to the grave. Military men in particular receive a double dose of emotional suppression. This is because the military privileges emotional toughness and stoicism, which is defined as the endurance of pain, both emotional and physical, or hardship without a display of feelings nor complaint, so that being in the military actually reconfirms the first messages males get from our society regarding emotional expression or the lack thereof. In the military, emotions are seen as a thing to overcome, as a hindrance often. Although this strategy of emotional suppression is absolutely critical for survival on the battleground and on deployment, it actually runs in direct opposition to what is needed in close relationships and bonds, such as marriages, parent and child dyads, family units. Close relationships such as these require mutual access to an expression of emotional vulnerability and openness in order to create a close, secure emotional bond that allows partners and family units to feel connected. Emotional suppression and inability to seek out loved ones for comforting and soothing in a time of need is absolutely toxic to close bonds that require an emotional connection to thrive. For example, couples need to be able to talk about their most painful and difficult experiences in life in order to share their pain, to feel a sense of joining, to experience a sense that I'm not alone in this world with the struggle, and to maintain closeness. Similarly, families or adult parent-child dyads need to be able to express sadness or grief or loss, vulnerable and painful emotions over changes or transitions that might have occurred as a result of military experience or other life-impacting events. For example, perhaps now an adult child is in the caregiving role for the veteran parent, which is a reversal of roles with emotionally significant meaning attached. If both people in this relationship aren't able to come to each other and express in an emotionally transparent way the painful or difficult experiences as a result of this situation, there can be an emotional wall, distance that develops and sometimes only grows stronger over time. Being shut out of a veteran's emotional experience often leaves their loved one or caregiver in the dark, knowing or sensing that emotionally meaningful events or experiences are occurring for the veteran, but not being allowed in to access the pain nor the ability to offer comfort. This can naturally lead the caregiver of the checked out veteran to respond in a variety of ways, including very often getting anxious, worried about what the veteran is thinking, worrying about what they're going through. Since you're in the dark, you might feel that something emotionally important is happening to your veteran, but you really don't know. Alternatively, anger might be the most primary emotion. This might come across to the veteran as blaming, attacking, labeling the veteran as sick or messed up. It might come across as criticism, frustration, throwing one's hands up. There are some important points that might help you understand your checked out veteran better. First, the checking out and detachment is almost always an attempt to protect the veteran themselves and their loved ones from the distress. The veteran might be thinking, I don't want to burden him or her with this. Or alternatively, if she or he knew this about me, they might think I'm a monster. In this way, the withdrawal or the detachment serves to protect both the partner and the veteran. The checking out behaviors of your veteran might feel like he or she doesn't care, but this is almost never the case. In fact, the veteran often cares so much and is so impacted that they have had to shut down and numb out to cope. Withdrawn and emotionally shut down people are often highly sensitive at their core. They've been so impacted that they cope by closing it in and holding it all alone. The numbing often covers a soft, sensitive center. You might ask yourself, well, what can I do that will be most effective? First, I'd like to address strategies that most often do not work. Although it makes sense that you might wish to pursue or push your veteran to open up, this is often a losing battle. Couples and parent-child dyads or families often get into this very typical struggle of one person pushing for more intimacy, more connection, with statements such as, let's talk about it, or please don't walk away from me, and a begging for the veteran to open up. Ironically, this often results in the veteran feeling pressured, inadequate, and misunderstood, and can actually lead to further withdrawal and shutting down in a vicious cycle that gets more and more intense over time. This approach avoid dynamic can amplify over time until it becomes bigger and bigger, with one person pursuing, pushing more and more as the other person retreats, withdraws, and disengages further. This demon dance of pursue-withdraw is often so painful that couples can begin to doubt the long-term viability of their relationship. This pattern of pursue-withdraw is so common that Dr. Sue Johnson's book, Hold Me Tight, 7 Conversations for a Lifetime of Love, addresses this dance and helps couples start to restructure their interaction in a way that allows both parties to stay present for difficult discussions and to make contact through emotional availability. Remember, what is most often the case is that the painful cycle of distress, rather than the actual person, is what one or both partners want to run away from. When partners can start to engage differently with each other, new patterns can develop that change the vicious cycle. If you're asking yourself, what can I do to start shifting this cycle? Strategies that might be more helpful include the following. The first thing you might try doing is showing your checked out veteran understanding versus anger or anxious pursuit of them. People are more likely to open up and stay present when they feel understood. The more you can communicate your understanding, both emotionally and intellectually, understanding that the emotional numbing and checking out is actually a form of protection for the veteran versus that he or she doesn't care about your relationship. This can help the veteran feel less backed into a corner or misunderstood. The more that you can see a kernel of truth in your veteran's experience, such as finding and putting words around why the emotional shutdown of your partner makes sense, given what you know about your veteran's family of origin, or how he or she grew up, or their military experience, This form of validation and normalization of their withdrawal and pulling back ironically can result in a greater likelihood of the veteran coming out more, feeling safer emotionally, and less in need of that protective withdrawal and detachment. Thirdly, the more that you can connect with the basic unmet needs for yourself in your relationship with the veteran, and to communicate those needs from a place of emotional vulnerability, instead of the frustration, anger, or anxiety that often comes secondary to being shut out. This is more likely to encourage your veteran to come forward because it feels safer for the veteran, and the veteran is more likely to come towards you to comfort. An example of what this dialogue might look like includes the following. I'm feeling really scared right now because I feel like important things are happening for you inside, and I feel left out in the dark, and that makes me very nervous. I sense that you might be struggling, but I imagine you feel like you have to handle this all alone. It helps me to know a little bit about what you're going through. I imagine it might also feel like it's too big to talk about, or that you need to protect me from it. I want you to know I'm here for you. I don't want you to have to handle this alone. I want to be able to help you with your pain. Please let me in. There are a few important points that I hope you walk away with today. Ultimately, it helps to recognize that for most couples, the withdrawn or detached person usually cares very much and retreats in order to protect, while the pursuer is often feeling scared, lonely, sad, excluded, and might respond with anger or anxiety that can tend to push the withdrawn person further away. When the withdrawer can begin to see the person coming towards them as lovingly concerned, and the pursuer can start to see the withdrawer as caring so much that he or she is shutting down to protect, this newly emerging perspective can sometimes start a significant shift in the stuck cycle that many caregivers and veterans get into.
If you have any questions or need assistance, go to the PsychArmor website or call the PsychArmor support line at 844-779-2427. Thank you for completing this course and taking that one step further in learning about our American veterans.